she said!
Let them eat cake.
He took the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. Shantini, yes. Right out of the gate. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. All right. We've got a good one for you guys today. Just like every day. Every day is a great day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Ron? Right?
It's just better when it's Friday.
Oh, man. I just did something I didn't mean to do.
Uh-oh. Do we got to start over?
I fixed it. I'm good.
Oh, good.
Nope, I'm good. Yeah, no starting over from my end. There's no crying in baseball, Ron. There's no crying in baseball. We're not going down that road. No redos on the Peasants Perspective. We're doing it live. We're doing it live every time.
My favorite.
I actually like the pressure of live. Really forces you to perform.
I do too, and I also like it because there's no cleanup.
Yeah, it's just post it and leave.
Yes.
Now, if we actually wanted to grow the show, we would clip it, do some post edits, re-upload a better copy, take out all the ums.
Now you're talking real work.
It'd be like Sean Ryan, that's basically these guys that pre-record their stuff. Yeah. No, making it live forces you to be better at what you do.
Yeah, you have to be good. If you screw up, it's out there for the world to see.
Yeah, no post edit here. Doug Wyatt, good morning. Carlites, good morning. Good morning, peasants. Finally get to listen live.
Yes.
Yeah, glad you're here. Glad you made it. Just me _PNW. Beautiful sunny day. I spend most of my day working in my garage. I've got my little corner office set up, and I'm missing the sunlight, man. The whole summer is going to pass me by, and I'm just going to be in my windowless garage every single day.
Don't be lying about how sunny it is. We know how sunny it is in Indianola.
You get about 90 sunny days a year. The rest of it's overcast, cloudy, and gray. How do I know? Because I'm your neighbor. I get the same clouds. Frazier, good morning. Carlito Tiffany on YouTube, good morning, y'all. Ponyboy, good morning. All right, you guys have all made it in here. Not everybody, but enough of you. It is time to get going with our simultaneous sip. And all you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind, and fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip, and it starts right now.
The gays are with me. I have the entire gay vote here. So I think she missed her. Everyone's missing who's voting for me. The only people that aren't are the socialists, the lunatics, and the communists. But any normal functioning brain that doesn't want to step in human poop when they get their matcha is voting for me, which is a lot of people. It's a lot of people.
You said most of you probably never heard of Chelsea Handler, so here's an introduction.
The game.
So funny. The only people...
You almost got me this morning with the spit take.
Yeah, the only people not voting for me are the socialists, the extremists, the communists. Is that what he said? The wackos. Everybody who's voting for me are the people who just want to go get their matcha without stepping in human excrement. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, Spencer Pratt is a breath of fresh air. That is what every politician should be like, is just like that. Marizo says, good morning from Meridian. Good morning, Meridian, my alma mater, Meridian High School.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were the Warriors. The ethos stuck with me.
I got a brother that lives there now.
Do you?
Yeah.
In Meridian?
Yeah, Derek.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you had a brother named Derek. I have never heard that name associated with your family.
Do you know how many brothers and sisters I have?
Apparently not. Nope.
Okay.
How many do you have?
I got 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
Okay.
So Chad, Rochelle, Grayson, Derek, Andrea, Stacy.
Okay, so I would have gotten Chad. I would have gotten Grayson.
Okay.
I didn't know about Derek.
Okay. Or Rochelle.
And how or Rochelle
or Andrea,
I knew Andrea.
Stacy.
Didn't know about Stacy. Do you know how many brothers and sisters I have?
No.
Okay. All right. Our
We're
friendship
even.
is on parity here. I'm going to hold that one for later. We're going to whip that one out at some later date.
For everybody out there, me and Taylor are the bestest of friends.
We're a traditional manly relationship. My wife
reminds me of
talk about, I don't know, the weather.
That reminds me of a thing I watched where my wife, she thought it was so funny. She's like, well, you went golfing with Jed, right? Yeah. Well, how was Stacy? And
they're like in the middle of a divorce or like some crisis. Is like, didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about Stacey. I know the clip you're talking about. That's so funny. I've never heard about Derek. I have no idea. What's funny is I know more about like your uncles and aunt than anything else.
Yeah. I got a big family.
Yes. Big family. All right. So Tim Burkhart was in committee hearing yesterday. And apparently the Republicans decided to cut a backroom deal with the Democrats. And so Tim Burkhart, he let his voice be known on the record.
Mr. Chairman, could I say something at this point, or do I need to wait?
Yeah, I yield to you.
Okay. I realize what's going on here, and I realize that, when you're not sitting at the table, that you're not heard. And I realize the deal has already been cut. And I want to warn our party. We're in the majority, and we're not acting like it. We'll be in the minority once again because of this kind of activity. And I'm disgusted that both sides of the aisle, that we're not allowed to, deals have been cut. And I think that's wrong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Both sides of the aisle, deals are being cut. He then walked out of that hearing and did one of his classic cell phone videos while he's walking around the halls of Congress. And furthermore, he said this.
Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett just left committee. Had some amendments that were cutting regulation, things that we should as Republicans do. Because of backroom deals they cut. They won't allow any amendments on the bill because the Democrats one Democrat didn't agree to it. So here we are in the majority, and we're not allowed to do that. And I'll guarantee you when the Democrats are in the majority, which they very much could be because of this kind of garbage. We're going to be in the majority. You all have extended us an incredible gift, and we're going to blow it because we're not acting like we're in the majority. You got opportunity. It's not sexy. Deals with bridges and things that, anyway, the amendment did, and we allow the Democrats to tell us what to do. It's just unbelievable. At some point, we're going to have to give some guts. This town is crooked as a dog's leg. I'm disgusted. So, thank y'all for sending me here. I really am glad you sent me here to this kind of stuff. I want to fight. And I'll let them have it. Anyway.
Sometimes it feels like there are so few good politicians in D.C. So he talks about the back room and having not had a seat at the table. So you just get to sit and complain about it and point it out, right? Put it on the record for everybody to see. This is what Gary in the political remodel document, which if you haven't done it already, you've got to go to politicalremodel.com and download the manuscript. He calls this the magic room. He says, imagine government as a magic room. Whoever occupies the room has control over everyone else. Both sides fight endlessly to gain access. But here's the catch. The door cannot be locked from the inside. The only way to permanently solve the problem is for those inside the room to voluntarily leave, close the door and lock it, removing that power from everyone. But those who seek power will never willingly give it up. So the real solution is not just electing different people. It is electing individuals who understand the dangers of power and are willing to reduce it. That principle matters more than any individual political issue. This is not enough to ask whether leaders use power for us or against us. The real question is, why are they reducing power or expanding it? Every time we see something like this, right, they go into the back room and we see political power games happening. The purpose of the political party is to win elections, right? But once the politicians are there, obviously there's a fine line between between standing on your individual principle, doing what's right for your constituents, and also continuing to support the party. Okay. So if the party has a correct political assumption and has a clear conservative agenda, then the party is the one where those deals get cut. And where is the center of focus at the party? The grassroots level, the PCOs. And what the PCOs want, the regular people, they want the deals cut in the open so we can see them. Right? We don't want to be, as Republicans, sending politicians to Washington, D.C. or Olympia, Washington, or, whatever, name any other capital city in America. You don't want to send your party members into the magic room with Democrats, with the other party to cut deals. That is the Uniparty. So while these people viciously hate each other, clearly what it starts to become is the one unifying theme between Democrats and Republicans. Pork. Is it our wants and needs, Ron? Is it the constituents?
Kind of. If you call pork.
It's power.
Yeah.
It's just straight up power, right? It's them maintaining their power. To the extent that the Uniparty exists, it's to keep incumbents in office. I mean, I can't think of it in any other way. So, for example, we have two Republicans running for Senate in Texas. We have John Cornyn, the incumbent, and we have Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. These are two people who have been on the same political team now for how long? Over a decade, 20 years, right? Ken Paxton has worked his way up through state politics. He's the second most powerful person in the state of Texas, the Attorney General. Some would argue even the most powerful person.
He's got good name recognition.
He's got good name recognition. He's got a pretty good track record. And then you've got John Cornyn, who's been around for a long time, too, in the Senate. He's one of the old bulls.
Also has good name recognition.
He's also pushed a lot of things like red flag laws for taking your guns away if somebody accuses you of any kind of, sketchy mental behavior. That's Texas. I'm pretty sure you get a gun with your driver's permit. You know what I mean?
Mess with Texas.
Yeah. Don't mess with Texas. I just assumed that meant stay off my lawn because I have a gun. Right.
Right.
So he's red flag laws. He's open border and pro amnesty. Like there's so many of these issues where you're just like, what's happening here? And I think a lot of it has to do with the primaries. John Cornyn has, to my knowledge, not faced a difficult re-election campaign. 6 years ago, I don't think he had a tough one. I don't think his Democrat opponent was all that strong. But you know what Ted Cruz has had to do every time he's run for re-election? It's been like the most expensive Senate race. He's constantly going up against good candidates. So John Cornyn seems to acquiesce to allow Democrats to do their thing and maintain their power. And in return, he wants the acquiescence for him to stay in power. Enter Ken Paxton, right? Ken Paxton actually wants to make some significant changes. And I think some of this has to do with the position of Attorney General. You actually see the crime that an open border promotes. You actually care about your state. Like your center of focus is a little bit different. So here is CNN talking about the fact that Donald Trump endorsed Ken Paxton here at the late hour. Early voting's already started down in Texas.
Where do the prediction markets put the Texas Senate runoff post-Trump endorsement?
Yeah, you see this 55% right there, and then it is no wonder in the Kalshi prediction market. I mean, you could just see the movement towards Ken Paxton. Look at this. On Monday, had a 66% chance of winning. Up like a rocket, right? Up like a rocket. 95%. Houston, if you are in fact John Cornyn, you have a big problem. But if you're Ken Paxton, you have a big time solution. 2 thumbs up, as the president likes to say. Right now, the Kalshi prediction market giving 2 thumbs up to the idea that Ken Paxton is in fact going to be the Republican nominee.
The prediction markets have to be looking at what just happened in Kentucky and elsewhere.
Yeah. Trump is sweeping with the primary endorsements. Now, again, how does this affect things? Remember what I said yesterday was the most dangerous time for Trump politically is really between now and the midterms. Here's an example of why. So John Cornyn does not get Donald Trump's endorsement. Ken Paxton does. The odds shoot up for Ken Paxton. At this point, I guess we'll wait for the election to happen, right? And see how many people show up, support the old guy Cornyn. We'll see. But the Senate, Trump's own party, his own Republican Party, has now responded in a fit. So between Trump endorsing Paxson and between the weaponization bill, Donald Trump has now run into the wall of the Senate. The Senate has completely exposed itself. And so they decided that instead of working on legislation and all the stuff that they've got on their plate, remember how time on the floor is the coin of the realm, as Thune says? Well, it's what better time than ever for a vacation?
It's the biggest congressional rebuke of President Trump's second term.
I just don't know how this puppy dog will work. I think there were 6 or 7 people who were going to vote no.
Republicans were on the verge of finally ending the ICE and Border Patrol funding impasse.
The sole reason we are here today is because Democrats refuse to fund law enforcement at the Department of Homeland Security.
But the president's $1.8 billion compensation fund killed the bill.
There are a lot of questions about it. I have Republican colleagues who have concerns about who can receive funding from that fund.
A meeting between Senate Republicans and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche failed to convince lawmakers to oppose bipartisan amendments curbing the fund.
This is about a profoundly corrupt plan by the president, and I think my Republican colleagues have reached their limit.
Thune said the compensation fund, quote, makes everything way harder than it should be. Deadlocked, GOP congressional leaders sent lawmakers home until June.
So this afternoon, Republicans, so divided, so dysfunctional, so disorganized, are fleeing Washington. Their majority can't melt down fast enough.
Some presidential allies defended the compensation fund.
Feel comfortable that have been wronged by their government should have some sort of redress.
And even though the president recently steamrolled opponents politically, Republicans blocked him legislatively.
Congress has our obligation to make sure we know what we're funding and fund the government to the reasonable expectation line.
Congress never approved the fund, and lawmakers balked at awarding claims to Capitol rioters. President Trump wanted ICE and Border Patrol funded by June 1st, but Congress missed that deadline. Brett?
And Chad, quickly, how long could this take?
Probably weeks. They want to try this again in June, but guess what? They have to fund FISA. They have to deal with that. They have to maybe roll all those things together. This could be another 5-6 weeks.
Wow. Chad Perkins live on Capitol Hill. Chad.
So they're making it out to be the J6 compensation fund. It's not a J6 compensation. It's a weaponization fund, which, by the way, I started to see more on it. If you were censored online, you could make a claim here. Like they've opened this thing up to tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people. They've made it super broad. And it even says in there, Democrats can make a claim. You know, there's some people that felt like the government was weaponized against them as Democrats. Yeah,
that's making me feel like I definitely should make a claim. I wasn't going to, but
just do it, man. Absolutely do it. Deborah Bavarian's, yes, you heard whoever you are. Deborah Bavarian, 88. The laziest bunch of grifters ever in the government. Ponyboy says when they shut down and throw fits on vacation, they should not get paid and have to pay fines. I agree. And throw fits and go on vacation. Pray the rosary daily. It's Friday. Yes, it is. Gentini, I agree. They definitely shouldn't be paid. So basically, this is how it ran down. So Trump says, all right, if you pass the Save America Act, I will back Cornyn and Paxson will drop out. And the Senate GOP responds, no, we can't, but we want you to back Cornyn. And then Trump says, well, pass the Save America Act first, and I will. And the GOP says, no, please back Cornyn. And Trump says, you know what? I'm just going to back Paxson since you refused to pass the bare minimum legislation. Senate GOP, Trump refuses to work with us, solely focused on revenge and nothing else. How dare he?
Oh, brother.
It's such a joke, man. It's such a joke. So I'm blown away by this, right? The weaponization fund is a red herring for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a red herring. None of these senators think that January 6th was that big of a deal. Even Tom Tillis.
They're batting this around like it's a badminton birdie. They're just like, they're just playing with it. Like they're a cat with a mouse.
Yes. And a theme that happens over and over again is that whole concept of thou dost protest a bit much, right? There's always a there. Okay. Mm-hmm. When January 6th happens and you're escorted out of the building and you're a senator or a house rep, I understand the initial shockwave. I can extend a cloak of clarity to the Kelly Loefflers and some of the others who at midnight on January 6th or whatever date it was that they finally certified the election. I can understand why they were frustrated. They're only seeing the news. They might not be in on anything. But as time goes on and you see the behavior of the January 6th committee, you see the hidden tapes, more and more information comes out. Constituents are reaching out to you that are being arrested and terrorized by their government. At some point, you can go, you know what? With more information, January 6th could have been a nothing burger had a few steps been taken to prevent the riot, aka approval of the National Guard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And then you also have to look at things like, you know, it's not like our government exactly has clean hands when it comes to prosecution. We just lived through Russiagate. We just lived through all these different things. And for the most part, the senators and the House members played along. They allowed the process to play out, whatever the case was, but they came to save the day at impeachment. Do you not see the writing on the wall by the time J6 rolls around, especially in the longer term aftermath, the shock and awe campaign, the weaponization? Do you think Tom Tillis really is that protective of the Capitol building itself? Do you think he has like, you know, oh, somebody broke a window? Like, have you thought about looking into who broke the windows? Like specifically, like find the names of the 10 people who broke windows and find out their stories. Or how about the multitude of people who broke windows that we have confirmed never got arrested? So when you're like, well, we can't give any money to anybody who broke a window and caused property violence. Okay, well, the people that you're watching on TV breaking windows are not amongst the January 6ers. Or how about this? How about everybody who punched a cop can't get a settlement? Okay, well, what about the people who claimed that they didn't punch cops, but they were alleged to have? So, for example, everybody who touched the sign that Ray Epps put up on the crowd to crowd surfed got charged with assault with a deadly weapon, 111B, but there was no direct assault on any officer whatsoever. So do they not deserve anything just based on the charge? Or do you want to do a review of video evidence? And if you do a review of video evidence and you have someone say who's standing over a dead woman's body, Rosen Boyland, and they engage with a police officer who is literally hitting a dead woman's body, and they tap her on the head with a flagpole to get her attention to tell her she needs CPR, not a beating. Is that guy not able to access the fund because he tapped a cop on the head in the act of assaulting a dead or dying woman? You see what I'm saying? Like, that's why you have to have a committee to go through it one by one. Nobody is out here saying if you're some, I don't know, there are some exceptions. I remember one story about a guy who brought a hockey stick and hit an officer 11 times with a hockey stick. Like, yeah, I want to know the details on that. You know, what happened? Did he get pepper sprayed in the face first? You know, was it, what happened there? There was another guy that came that told me he showed up in DC, the DC Gulag just before I left. And he came to the Capitol Hill with riot gear and a baton. And he was on patrol for Antifa and ended up losing it and ended up striking an officer like dozens of times with his own baton that he brought from home. Now, he pled guilty in open court to all of the charges, not a plea deal. He just straight up stood up one day in a hearing and said, I plead guilty to everything. He was just done with the back and forth. And I talked to him and I was like, you know, you kind of came to the Capitol with this idea that you were looking for a fight and something happened and you snapped. And he didn't really have great justification at the story that I heard as to why he engaged with the officers with the baton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can understand someone like that. I can see where there's a little bit of angst. There's 1,580 defendants, and you might have a dozen cases that you might look at and you kind of scratch your head. A dozen cases, maybe 2 dozen, maxing out. But beyond that, you're talking about tourists. You're talking about guys like me that pushed a gate the act was pushing the gate. That wasn't like the assault, right? That's the kind of stuff where these guys, they're not stupid. These senators are not stupid. They totally could just say, yeah, leave it up to the committee, you know? All right, we're going to talk some more about that in the private. Sorry to bore you guys with the personal details, but it just seems like such nonsense. These Republicans end up playing into the Democrats' hands over and over and over and over again. And it starts to make me wonder if the magic room, the deal that's cut, is just allow us to stay in power. If you're a Republican, don't run a strong Democrat against me in my seat. If you're a Democrat, don't run a strong upstart MAGA type Republican against me in my seat, right? It starts to become more about just staying in power than it is about using your power. And that's what we need to change. The political remodel. We need to teach our party how to use their power. When they're gifted with the majority, we want the agenda to advance. We don't want you to take vacation when you could be passing the Save America Act, when you could be funding a housing bill, when you could be opening ICE and DHS back up on the verge of the World coming to America. These don't make it. You're that upset about a $1.776 billion weaponization fund that's open to thousands of people? Or are you really just upset that your grifting friend Cornyn isn't going to get reelected in a primary in Texas, right? And what's going to be the cost of that? What's going to be the cost of essentially not advancing the Trump agenda? You might lose the midterms.
Freedom.
Freedom. The cost will be freedom. You might lose the midterms. So Representative Jim Jordan came up with a great solution. He's like, hey, why wait for the Democrats to be in charge? Let's just advance their agenda right now because we know they're going to do it.
The chair recognizes the chairman of the full committee.
One quick question. I'm just curious what the panel thinks. Why don't we just add 4 justices now? 13 circuits. We need to go to 9 to 13 as the ranking member of the full committee suggested at the start of the hearing. Why wouldn't we just add them now if we're going to add them? What do you think of that? We'll just maybe go down the line.
The first rule of justice is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I oppose doing that now, just as I would oppose doing it under a different president.
No, that's where I'm at. Totally agree. But it seems to me if we're going to do it, and 13 is some important number that we got to get to based on the number of circuits, then we should, if we're going to do 4, do it now. Mr. Bowie, would you support doing that, doing 4? You said if Congress thinks it's the right thing to do, we should go for it. So if it's the right thing to do, can we go for it now?
Well, I agree with the principle. It's in your prerogative. You have the prerogative to determine how the Supreme Court works. The court did not descend from on high in its current form in the palace across the street. It's your job to determine what kind of court.
And you would have no problem with us doing it now.
Look, I disagree with many of the policies that come out of Congress right now, but I really have faith in your ability to live up to your office. And I think that you have the authority to determine what kind of justice we want to see in this country.
That's great. I think I know what Professor Ross and Mr. Scherer's answer is as well, which is where I'm at. But
yeah, I would oppose any expansion of the court.
Yeah, I'm there too.
So let's just do it. I mean, if the Democrats are going to do it, if they're campaigning on it, if we're going to basically allow the Democrats to do it, why don't we just do it for them? Why don't we just give Trump 4 more Supreme Court justice nominations right now? Like, if we're going to put if it's so important to get the number of the court to 13, why wait?
Are we going to play some clips of Democrats losing their minds?
Wow, no, we need 9 people until 2028, and then we want to pack the court.
Right.
Oh, why is the timing so important for you? Because we want to pack the court. Exactly. The intention is to pack the court. So if you're going to do it, let's just do it. And this becomes the logic as to why we should get rid of the filibuster, too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, in a world where things make no sense, Ron, we are not in a Democrat country. We are not in a deep blue state.
Mm-hmm.
Barely, we're some shade of red, crimson red, a little bit of blue in there to darken up the red, right? At worst, there are so many indicators that Republicans should be wielding their power, okay? First of all, obviously, you've got the redistricting game going on. That can shift the focus dramatically. But systematically, what Trump has done is he has attacked the Democrats at their very core. Act Blue, and it's not even necessarily Trump. It's the coalition of people who finally get the writing on the wall. Act Blue has been severely neutered. Okay, they can't smurf quite like they were. They're under investigation and/or indictment in a couple states. Very limited on what they can do campaign-wise now. Like, they're having to actually raise money the old-fashioned way, dollar by dollar. The DNC, right, miffed it big time with Kamala Harris, and a lot of donors have become upset. I mean, even the billionaire who was backing up Swalwell decided to back a Republican before he got arrested. Okay. The RNC, Republican National Convention, has cash on hand right now of $123.9 million. Is that a lot or a little?
Well, for a presidential election, that's not enough.
Okay, but we're still 2 years out from the presidential election, but that's quite a bit of money cash on hand.
Yeah.
Now, it's easy to know exactly how much money this is when you contrast it with the Democrat National Convention. They have $14.4 million on hand.
Oh, what happened?
And there's $17.5 million in debt. The RNC has no debt.
Oh,
so I want you to understand this here, okay? We are not in a situation where Republicans need to compromise with Democrats.
Ever.
You're giving them everything they want because they became your friends, because you're collecting power together, because you're wielding power together, not because you have better ideas, because you share similar ideas. Okay. Republicans, the RNC has $123.9 million cash on hand, and the Democrats have $14.4 million of cash on hand and are $17.5 million in debt, which dang near means they're bankrupt. Okay.
Sounds like they are.
Why are the Republicans meeting with Democrats? And this makes no sense. It makes no sense. The establishment Republicans, the old guard, is allowing the Democrats to stay in power. It's giving them a voice and a seat at the table when they have not earned it. They are not going to keep it without the Republicans' help. Dramatic stuff there, right? Yeah. It is stunning. Now, CNN, after Kamala Harris lost in 2024, there was an autopsy that they did on the election, right? That was kind of supposed to expose a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of pressure to release the postmortem autopsy. What went wrong? What went wrong? And it wouldn't get released. And finally, the former DNC head released it and was like, I don't support this autopsy. It's a big mess, right? It's not very good. It doesn't look good for us. Well, let's listen to CNN's reporting on it, because they did the longest blurb on this. And remember, this is their side. Okay. So this, if there was something for them to puff up or to say, hey, we could do better, they would say it. This is CNN's reporting on this Democrat Party post Kamala Harris campaign autopsy.
New exclusive reporting first into the Situation Room. CNN has obtained the Democrats' long-awaited autopsy of the 2024 election, documenting what went wrong in Kamala Harris's loss to President Trump. After publicly promising its release, DNC Chair Ken Martin pulled the plug on the elusive report last year, sparking fierce criticism within the party.
CNN senior reporter Isaac Dover got his exclusive hands on all of this. He's joining us now in the Situation Room. Isaac, this report, you were a big part in why it came out in the first place. Excellent reporting on your part. After back and forth from the DNC chair, Ken Martin, on whether or not he'd release it in full. So what's inside it?
Well, so first of all, that is an important part of this. The plan was not to release this report. The report was released to me after I had obtained a lot of the detail and contents of what was in there. And the report that we have published on our website is with annotations from the DNC lawyers undercutting a lot of what is in the report. That said, it gets into things about spending decisions and organizing that was done by the DNC, ways to possibly improve it. But there are a lot of things in that version that are incomplete. And also, it does not touch a couple of topics that a lot of people were very interested in and thought were the reasons for this report not being out. There's nothing about Joe Biden and what happened in the debate. There's nothing about Kamala Harris getting the nomination without any kind of primary process. And also, there is nothing about the way that voters were responding to Gaza and how the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris policies and comments about it were hitting their minds.
So a lot was missing in that report. I know you reached out to the.
They're not a self-reflective bunch.
What the hell did it cover?
They're not They're not a very self-reflective bunch.
DNC chair Ken Martin. who we noted earlier has come under some fire for initially not releasing this report to the public. What's he now saying?
Well, he apologized in a statement to me for how he handled it. And he said that he was releasing it to me because he feels like this is about getting back to some level of transparency. But he says in the statement that the report was not ready for prime time. That's how he put it. And that's why he chose not to do it, that it's full of a lot of problems. And again, we are publishing the full report so that people can see it and read for themselves and make their decisions about what's in there.
Because in the full report, there's spelling issues, there's errors and just basic facts. Why didn't they have a more polished, put together report at this point in the game?
Well, look,
because they're broke. They're out of money. It was a volunteer project at that point, probably.
This was after a year of work on it. And the story that I have up that goes along with the publishing of the report goes through the whole process of how this went down. Martin hired a friend of his as a part-time volunteer to be the person in charge of this report. And that person, I get into a lot of the conversations that person was having. His name is Paul Rivera, that he was having with people and how those conversations went, but also a lot of conversations that he wasn't having. For example, he did not speak to almost anybody who was in the leadership position on the Biden campaign or the Harris campaign. He didn't speak to Joe Biden. He didn't speak to Kamala Harris. He didn't speak to Tim Walz. He did not speak to, when it comes to the Gaza issue, any of the leaders of the uncommitted movement, which was...
It's kind of like when we pay people to fix homelessness and then they just don't go out and meet with the homeless.
This whole thing, I'm hearing 10 times more information about how they came up with the report than about the actual report.
It's because the report said nothing.
I know, but they talk a lot. There's a lot of talking. Oh, man, we were talking about it and I was talking to somebody else about it.
This is what I'm saying. You pay money to someone to fix homelessness, and then you find out they never went out and talked to the homeless, right? So you pay someone to write the autopsy report, and then they don't address any of the issues or talk to any of the people involved, and they're just like, well, I mean, a misspelled word here or there.
That protest movement, pro-Palestinian protest movement. He didn't speak to Jewish groups or pro-Israel groups. So he wasn't just leaving out one part of that conversation. He left out all parts of that conversation. And that has led to a lot of conspiracy theories about what was going on here. But I think when you see the full story of what's there and what this process was and read the document, you will have a lot of, if not all of, hopefully your questions answered.
When you release the full document.
Yes, it's up on our website right now.
All right, excellent reporting.
I have a feeling it's not going to answer any of our questions.
My hard-hitting question is, did they get all the spelling right?
Yeah, who knows?
What? Who cares?
So here's the thing. If the voters get out and vote, right, then things can happen. So in the Thomas Massey election, there's kind of there's a conspiracy theory going around.
Oh, boy.
There's a conspiracy theory. There's a conspiracy thing going around because there's this thought that how did essentially this was a huge turnout. So let's put a couple things on the board here. This was the most expensive congressional primary race in history, right? So between the two sides, like $20 or $30 million, a huge chunk of money was spent in this rural Kentucky district. So you had TV ads, you had internet ads, you had radio ads, you had every stop pulled out by both sides. And Massey, by the way, you could never say Massey was underfunded. He spent the most money of anybody ever, right? Like he broke the record. And if he didn't come in number one because Galerian came in number one, then he came in number two. It's not like he was short money. He had plenty of money. And so what happened here was I gotta get these in order here. All right, so the question is being asked, hey, Grok, purely hypothetical. What is the statistical probability that 52,000 new voters suddenly appear in a primary and vote over 90% against the incumbent? So this is the question that Mandy Arthur writes.
Okay.
And Grok gives the answer. The statistical probability is effectively zero, far beyond hundreds of standard deviations from the mean. On any reasonable binomial model of independent voter behavior, given that U.S. congressional primary incumbents facing opposition historically win 97% of the time, with a typical anti-incumbent support well under 30. So statistically, in a natural vacuum, this would never happen. But what was the input that changes the statistical norm?
Donald Trump endorsement.
Donald Trump endorsement and the money being thrown into this race. So all of a sudden, this primary race, if you're in Kentucky 4, feels like a presidential election. You're getting carpet bombed, air bombed. Every ad on your cell phone, every other commercial on the radio, every other ad on TV is a political ad reminding you
saturation.
You've saturated. Everybody in Kentucky 4 knew we have an election this week, right? How is that obvious? Because I am trying to watch a football game. You know what I mean? Because I am trying to watch late night TV, and all I'm getting bombarded with is political and campaign ads. So that's going to juice the turnout. So what happened here is, I want to get these two in order, and I'm trying to remember which one comes first here.
Are all these political ads brought to you by Pfizer?
Yeah, seriously. So Shipwreck and Crew asked this. He goes, why do you call them new, these new voters? The total in the primary on Tuesday night was around 105,000 combined voters.
Okay.
The total in the general election in 2024 was 280,000 voters. So you have a huge drop off, not quite a third, but down there close to a third of the number of general election voters in 2024 showed up in the primary. This is kind of typical, right? But it very activated. More voters turn out for a POTUS year in general election than voters. These voters are there all the time. So there's 280,000 voters that voted in 2024. So they're all like, if we don't go over $280,000, we know we're doing pretty well. We basically got 105,000 people to turn out in a primary. It's probably not that bad. The real mystery is how Massey received 278,000 votes in 2024 election, but only 47,500 of those voters came out for him this week, when his political life was at stake. Fewer than 1 out of 5.
Whoa.
And then he goes on to say he got 77% against an unfunded primary challenger in 2024, with 39,000 votes cast for him. This week, he got 45% with 47,000 votes cast for him. His unfunded opponent in 2024 received 6,600 votes. So he won with 39,900 votes, and his opponent got 6,600 votes. So Massey carried it just fine.
Yep.
Now he's got a real primary challenger. They juice the market. They increase the turnout. 51,000 more Kentucky 4 district Republicans turned out to vote against Massey in 2026 than voted in 2024. That's not AIPAC, and that's not Jews, whatever that is. Only those in a circus sideshow act would say it was. So what this is this is exactly that. You have an army of voters out there that will respond to Trump's call one way or the other. That's pretty dang significant.
That's huge.
Do you remember when we were listening to that Karen Bass interview and she was talking about, well, I have reduced homelessness a little bit. Another term, I'll increase it even more. I was surprised at how much resistance I had inside of the mayor's office to reducing homelessness. Well, Spencer Pratt reveals exactly what's going on with that homelessness here. Okay. This is pretty interesting. So he says the Weingart NGO got a $30 million grant for homeless housing, and a senior citizen home was cleared of elderly residents. The property was listed on the market for 11.2, but was then sold to Weingart for 27 million. There's a huge gap on the money there. The city pays the NGO extremely high rates, $400,000 per bed per year for homeless housing on this property.
What?
You know how I say the buses will be free? If you have enough money to pay a homeless person $400,000 per year for their bed.
Wow.
What's the median income in LA? 150 grand, 120 grand, 90 grand. You could, you may as well give them a middle income job. What? That's what? Homelessness is expensive, you guys.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so is Spencer Pratt, except he's going to do something about it.
You know who doesn't have a heart? Are the people scamming the billions of dollars that are making millions of dollars, taking that money to increase homeless. So my big button issue is the first week as mayor, because I now have met in Washington and LA more than probably 7 times with the criminal investigation team at the IRS. I'm bringing the whole team in. Here are all the books of LA. Any document I can legally show as mayor to the IRS criminal investigation, show me all the fraud. Who is scamming our tax money to increase homelessness? And then I'm putting cases on all these millionaires. If you look, the Justice Department right now has already busted a few in the last month. And I just met with this woman who's in Westwood. Her and her husband are lawyers. And next door to all the houses in their community, a senior citizen home was turned into, allegedly, it still hasn't, 3 years later, into homeless housing. Watch this. This Weingart, they're like an NGO. They have like 10 of these homeless housing facilities. This one we're going to talk about in Westwood area, the city gives them a grant for $30 million to take this. They kick the senior citizens out. That some of these people then die because now they're, displaced.
Well, the fastest growing population of homelessness is senior
So they're kicking out regular senior citizens to then put homeless people allegedly in there. So there's nobody in here still 3 years later. So they take the $30 million. Here's the best part of this story to me. Who owns this building that they give the $30 million grant for?
Who?
Not the city. So first thing, as mayor, any dollar of taxpayer money for homeless housing, the city's going to own the building, and then we'll hire someone to operate it. And then if they fail, we'll put a new person in. This isn't the scam they got running now. Best part about this story, the building was on the market for like 9 days for $11.2 million. Guess how much the building then sells to Weingart for? $27 million. So what's this gap? We don't know where that money goes to. Here's my other favorite part. How much do you think the city pays for each in this one building that still doesn't have homeless people?
So just to clarify, so that if they're giving a $30 million grant, that they're using that money to buy the building from themselves, basically.
Exactly. City does not keep it.
Right.
And then the people get to operate it at $1 million a year, whatever. Each bed in this facility, this specific one, this is cheap. There's ones that are more. Each bed is $400,000 a year. One homeless person, $400,000 a year.
Why?
Guess for the best part, they have no legal requirement to put a homeless person in a bed. They still get the money. So this whole building can still bill the city.
Taxes are paying for this building, paying for the upkeep of this building, and paying the profits of the building, and the building's not really operating.
So people ask me, what are you going to do to help affordability in LA? Well, first off, once we get rid of all the scamming in the billions of dollars and we put that money back into city services that all of us who are in the center, common sense, hardworking Angelinos have expectations, we're going to get some affordability back because we're not going to be scamming. Again, LA is always going to be expensive.
So would you not take any corporate money so that you're beholden to, because a lot of the time.
Yeah. Who's funding you?
Nobody. I raised I'm like, I got less money than this room has.
But if someone came to you.
Nobody's coming to me. They're all in on it.
Nobody's coming to me. They're all in on it. So to respond to the fraud, you won't take any corporate money.
Right.
That's not the problem.
No. It's like, hello, we just talked about $400,000 a bed. Hello.
For nobody in the bed.
That's amazing.
Okay. Remember when Kevin Warsh said that Bitcoin can keep policymakers accountable, that it will give them signals on when they're doing the right thing or not, because you either go up in Satoshis or you go down in Satoshis.
Yeah.
You don't have the liberty of magic money printing. This, what they're talking about here with the homelessness problem, $400,000 per bed, occupied or not. And then you have a vacant building that you kicked out the elderly residents. And now you have an empty building getting money and a grant. And you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no feedback loop there on your balance sheet because that money is just kind of printed and given, printed and given, printed and given. So
I just want to sponsor one homeless person per year.
Yeah. I think we've got room in here, Ron. We can just make that a homeless bed.
Yeah.
Just one. I would give, you know what? I'll give them my master bedroom. They don't even have to be there. They won't even have to be there. I'm just gonna list it on their website. I'm gonna get my $400,000.
Hell yeah. I'll sleep on the couch.
I'm not taking applications, but it's available should it be needed at $400,000. These numbers are eye-popping. Right? We've got missing money in Seattle. We've got tons of missing money in Minnesota. We're going to talk about that, a little bit of that a little bit later, right? We've got missing money all over California, Maine, Florida, everywhere. No more hospice, no more hospice care, no more new licenses, no more medical device licenses and grants. Not doing it. Why? Because like 90% of you guys are fraud. They cut off 90% of the medical device facilities in Florida. And guess how many phone calls they got complaining, saying,
Zero.
hey, I was depending. Zero. Because they know if they call, they're going to get looked into. They're going to be validated. The legitimate ones, they sell a product. It's easy. They didn't get cut off. They just said no more. Okay. It's unbelievable. So as peasants, there's complaining and there's solutions. I want to make a difference. I want to actually get out of this. And so while, yes, we come on the podcast and we rant. The objective here is to do something about it. We have to change our politics. Politicalremodel.com, download the manuscript. That's the playbook. You can go to takebackmycounty.com. That is the association where you can now be a part of a grassroots effort to try to actually fix the Republican Party so that we can fix our politicians so we don't have these magic room, backroom deals that leave the people out, right? I would rather replace every single Republican in the House every 2 years if they don't agree to do what we, the people, want them to do. And the party belongs to us. That is our party. That is our label. The whole design of the Republican Party is thousands and thousands of PCOs across the country. Collectively, in our county, there's a couple hundred of us. That should be a couple hundred of us. And we select every person who gets to put an R behind their name, from those who run for mayor and city council and town councils to our representatives in Olympia, in your state capital, and our representatives in Washington. Every single one of those positions needs a vote. An individual resident in your county votes, cast, one ballot on the cycle. But when you look at how many boxes they fill in, they are casting hundreds of votes. And every single one of those votes, if the Republican Party gets a spine, looks like it stands for something identifiable and understandable, every single one of those politicians from the top to the bottom require a PCO to go into his neighborhood and endorse you and to tell his neighbors, that's our guy. He's going to represent this neighborhood on the town council or on the county commission or in your state capitol or in the federal buildings. That's our guy, our neighborhood. We have a contract with them. They said in that position, given the authorities that position holds, they are going to represent us in the following ways. Here's the contract. If the PCOs do that, all of this becomes nebulous, right? So you've got to go get involved. Even if it's just being on the mailing list so you can stay up to date. When the moment arises and you need to show up or you need to campaign or you need to write that one letter or make that one phone call, you could be the difference maker, right? You could be the difference maker.
Wouldn't it be great if you could just count on your representatives to do the right thing and you didn't have to worry about the kabuki theater, how it was going to turn out?
The idea that you have a nationwide thing that's 85% popular, like the Save America Act, and John Thune acts like, well, our vacation is more important. This makes no sense. This tells me that either the Republicans are in on it because they're preserving their power. They don't want the votes counted correctly. So how do you change this? Listen, you know what they're not going to get past? They're not going to get past an endorsement at the county level. Because guess what? There aren't secret ballots cast. It's voted for right there. All in favor to endorse this candidate? Aye. And then they get an R behind their name. And then you go out and you push the R. Okay. And then you explain that the R, when the R behind the name on that candidate, they have an agreement with us. The county, the voters, the people, from the dog catcher to the president of the United States. If they want your county's endorsement to be an R coming out of your county, it's going to mean something, right? So we want solutions. And the other thing we have to do, and we have to do this, Ron, we have to take away the money from the government. We have to take the money away from them. The source of credit. The source of credit right now is gold. It's what's in Fort Knox. That's what originally gave the United States the ability to print money and send it all over the world. And it was the reserve, the world's reserve currency, because we held the most gold. He who holds the most gold makes the rules. We were the most financially solvent country after World War II, Bretton Woods Agreement. We propped up every other Western nation after that. But we have lost the right to rule. You've got grant money going to homeless centers in LA that don't do anything with homeless people, but they make people incredibly filthy wealthy. You've got money going to help at-risk teens in Seattle, and there's some random bookkeeping errors. $1.9 billion can't pay out settlements, but oh my gosh, we have too much money. We have so much money we can't even account for it. Okay, we got problems like that going on. We're sending $40 million per week to Afghanistan still. They're upset about a $1.7 billion weaponization fund, but we're still funding the Taliban weekly. Okay, these kind of things are unacceptable. So Jason Lowry, who is he's a officer in the United States Army, and he's in charge of cybersecurity and all these other things. And he gave a speech about Bitcoin and how it can be used as a projection of power. This is how our military, okay, he's high up. He's does this stuff. This is how our military views our money system. Because remember, they have to pay the price in blood.
Bitcoin didn't cause a bunch of bankers to do fractional reserve lending. I think we can all agree about that, right? Bitcoin didn't cause a bunch of bankers to take too much leverage. Bitcoin didn't cause bankers to debase savers and to destroy the purchasing power of the currency, to bail out the bankers who are fractionally reserve lending and taking too much leverage. Okay? Bitcoin didn't kick entire sovereign nations off of an international payment system. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind, right? If you're an architect of a financial system, then it's your responsibility to not motivate people to leave that financial system, which means don't debase them. Don't continue bailing out the people who are making the mistakes. Don't kick entire sovereign nations off this thing.
Think about what he's saying right there for a second in a military uniform. Bankers and politicians, they run together, don't they? Are you hearing this?
Well, I was feeling motivated to move my money.
That's pretty incredible there. He's saying Bitcoin didn't do those things, right? You guys did those things with the money. You debased the money. You're the ones who caused these international nightmares by kicking sovereign nations off of the money system, right? Bitcoin didn't do that. You did that. And who's the mop-up crew for the bankers and the politicians?
Military.
Like, it's your responsibility to not do that if you want to maintain like the dominant financial information network. Okay, don't blame Bitcoin for your, I almost said something bad. Don't, I'll just leave it at that. Okay. So, and by the way, if this is more than just a coin, right? If this is bit power, if we have no kidding, again, this is theory. I could be crazy. I'm relying on other people to evaluate. That's how computer science works. Computer theory works. If we have no kidding figured out a way to project power in from through cyberspace, a new physical power projection protocol that will transform cybersecurity and national security, then blaming Bitcoin to protect your failing hegemony, let's call it for what it is, okay, that's not going to help you. It's still going to break down. Like, your financial system is still going to collapse as long as you keep on doing the things that I just said, okay? What you would actually be doing is you would be forfeiting our access as a nation to this protocol, to bit power. Okay, you would be denying us access to this future. And that would be a strategic nightmare.
Wow, that's a pretty good argument.
When people talk about, well, Bitcoin's for criminals, you realize like 99% of all money laundering goes through the current financial system.
Through the government?
Well, the current system, like, you know, the cartels bank, right? like this idea that, Bitcoin's for criminals. It's like, what do you think Chase Bank is for? You know what I'm saying? Like, the criminals wear a shirt and tie. Like, they show up in DC and then they take a shuttle up to New York. Like, that's where they're at right there. Like, that's them.
Right after they get done lobbying.
Yeah, exactly. Like those are the criminals. Now, for a timeline here to understand Bitcoin's impact and why this Iran conflict really exposes the whole game here, there's been a timeline of events that Jason Lowry is referring to that you're kind of at the end stage of the game.
1971, Nixon closes the gold window and the dollar becomes pure fiat. In 1974, the U.S. cuts a deal with Saudi Arabia to price oil exclusively in dollars, and the petrodollar system is born. In 2003, Iraq attempts to sell oil in euros, and shortly thereafter, Saddam Hussein is dead within months. In 2011, Gaddafi proposes a gold-backed Pan-African currency to sell Libyan oil, and within months, he's dead too. And of course, in 2022, G7 nations froze $300 billion worth of Russian central bank reserves over the war in Ukraine. So central banks around the world watch this happen, and they begin buying gold at the fastest pace in decades. And then in 2026, Iran becomes the first nation to formally settle trade tied to global energy in Bitcoin. That chain of events isn't a coincidence. It's a 55-year arc of countries trying to escape the dollar system and getting punished for it, until one of them finally found a tool that the punishment cannot reach.
So don't blame Bitcoin. there's a chain of events that have happened that led to this moment. Okay. And obviously the Trump administration is wise to this. One of the quotes from Marco Rubio is, in 5 years, we won't be talking about sanctions anymore because the dollar will not have that kind of reach. Okay. Now, we talked about how Iran set up their insurance fund, AKA a toll. If you pay us the money, you can pass through the strait. That's called extortion, you dum-dum. We're paying insurance against you, right? When the insurance company is the mob, okay, if you don't pay your insurance bill, the mob will show up. Well, how do I know it works? Because we won't come break your windows if you pay the mob. I mean, this is like New York street gang type stuff going on here. But the idea of the Bitcoin reserve, they set that up, that insurance payment for tolls, right? Insurance to pass through the straits, insurance that we won't attack you. If a nation decides to pay it, let's just pay it. We just want to get through the strait. The United States can't do anything about it, which then leaves our only solution to continue to use what? The military to prevent them from, now we're going to prevent potentially, this is where it gets a little dicey, potentially if a boat from Australia wants to get out, okay, a pseudo ally, they're supposed to be real allies, but a pseudo ally decides to pay the toll, pay the insurance in Bitcoin, and then wants to come out of the strait, do we let him out or not?
I don't know.
We would probably let him out.
This is the question.
So
I think this is why
think
you've
about
been
this.
seeing a lot of like, well, the strait's open. Nope, no, it's closed. Now Iran says it's open.
So
now
Trump
Iran
has
says it's closed.
Trump has said every boat that's not Iranian can come out.
Sure.
Okay. So every boat that's not Iranian or carrying goods back and forth for Iran can come out. But they can't come out because there's still the threat of Iranian attacks for these tanker ships. They don't have defenses. Okay. So they're not coming out, even though the United States has said, yeah, you can come out. So Iran is blockading deeper inside the straits, and then we're blockading a little bit farther outside the straits.
Right.
So let's say one company goes, or one country goes, okay, we want to get our boat out. America will let us out. Like, we can just come. So let's pay the toll. Let's pay the insurance, the extortion to Iran in Bitcoin.
To get through the first blockade. Well, then at that point, do we then block them and say, hey, you can't have paid the toll? Yeah, you're seeing the problem here. See, Bitcoin introduces a variable that the government can't touch. They can't seize it. They can't take it. Okay. And so Marco Rubio addresses this issue, and he's like, we can't have this happen at all. And the reason is because it would set a horrible precedent.
Holding system in an international waterway. That's just not acceptable. It can't happen. If that were to happen in the Straits of Hormuz, it will happen in 5 other places around the world. Why would countries all over the world say, well, we want to do this too? Not to mention how vital and critical that strait is to every country represented here today, but frankly, to countries not represented here today, particularly the Indo-Pacific. So we'll have a good meeting today. I hope it'll be productive. I expect it will be, and it'll set the ground.
Did you get that? We can't let it happen, because if it happens in the Strait of Hormuz, there's 5 other places that are choke points around the world where another nation could charge
insurance to pass in Bitcoin. And if you can't do anything about the money, right? They couldn't pay it in dollars because we just sanctioned the dollars. But all of a sudden, the Bitcoin thing becomes a problem. So now can you enforce your tolls? So this is where the United States is in a little bit of a pickle. If a country dare pay the toll, now the United States is obligated to prevent that country from crossing.
I guess NATO still is important for one little thing here.
It should have always been just for trade lines, except they didn't come out to help when this was going on. Very interesting times. Bitcoin changes the math. Why? Because it holds the policymakers accountable. If you're going to weaponize your dollar, don't blame Bitcoin when people want to get off the dollar. When Iran is successful charging one of these tolls or these insurances, and trust me, they're going to be doing this going forward. They're like, they were already going crypto because of the inability of the sanctions and the faster transaction settlement. Now they're going to go Bitcoin hardcore. You're going to see every nation want to do this because, hey, we are literally watching the guys who have been pummeled into the mat keep their money, which has never happened.
I was just thinking, if we didn't have so many problems with our fiat currency, I don't know that Bitcoin would even be popular. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course not.
So the fact that Bitcoin is popular at all, it should tell you something about how we really feel about fiat currency.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Listen, man, I've got my problems with it because it was a melting ice cube in the bank. It was more valuable yesterday than it is today.
Yeah.
So I would have been better off spending it yesterday than in the future.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's for me, microeconomics. That's like, well, I don't want to store my value here. You only want to keep a couple months savings because who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, Bitcoin changes them. It's funny. The more I'm doing Bitcoin, the more my brain changes because I see things like your stack of Satoshis. It never changes. And even the dollar amount changes. You're like, well, I don't want that. I don't want that number to go down.
Well, I know what this is. You keep noticing that your paradigm doesn't fit your current reality.
Yes.
And you're sort of like, hold on. Oh, I need to think about that differently now. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Northgate Mall in Seattle. It was one of the first malls in America. It wasn't the first, but it was close to the first. It was opened in 1950. Okay. Have you seen the Northgate Mall recently? You know what I'm talking about over in Linwood.
Yeah, but no, I haven't. I don't go to Seattle.
Check this out.
You guys remember Northgate Mall? This is all that's left of it.
Oh.
I mean, this is just the old inside. I miss it so much, though.
Wow.
Northgate Mall is totally empty. What caused Northgate Mall to empty up? COVID was the death blow, right? Amazon delivery services, that took a hit. But there's a lot of people that will pay for nostalgia, and they will pay to go to a store, to go browse and things like that. Like, malls can create culture. So can things like Pizza Hut. One of the new owners of Pizza Hut, he's revitalizing Pizza Hut. I mean, he's brought back the dining tables. He's brought back the salad bar because they went all like corporate tight efficiency, and people just walked away from Pizza Hut.
Yeah, right? They lost it.
They lost the nostalgia. Well, he's brought it back, and Pizza Hut is on the rise again because people will pay to go in and have that family atmosphere and relive their childhood. Generation X, boomers, they're all about this.
I've actually talked about this with my wife. It's like, I was reminiscing about the past pizza places that I've been to, and I was thinking about all of them and then the ones that were the best. And I was thinking, what was really good when I was a kid was Shakey's. Shakey's Pizza. I don't know if you can even find one anymore. And then another one was Pietro's. Pietro's was mwah.
Yeah.
They're gone. There's just a bunch of them.
Yeah. So the current way things work right now is if a business wants money for expansion, remodeling, whatever it needs money for, growth, right? You need money. So you need capital investment.
Yeah.
So where do you get that capital? If you can't earn it and save it as you go, you need to expand, to invest, to grow, right? Because you're offering a product that people want. Where do you get the money? What's your first place you go?
Go out there to the bank, I guess.
You go to the bank. And so now you've got the bank's terms, their underwriting, their interest rates and stuff like that. Okay. So what's the other way? What if the bank is like, hey, we don't have $1 billion to lend you, or we don't have $100 million to lend you, or, you don't qualify for the expansion. The business model's unproven.
Well,
an entrepreneur.
Maybe you go out and look for some venture capital. Then you try to find some, knee breaker guys,
some venture capital. The other thing is you go public.
Okay.
Right. You take the company public. So when you take a company public, you take your shares, you take your ownership, and you offer a certain percentage of that ownership to the public, and you sell stock in the business. So now people make a capital investment, an equity investment. They become part owners, right, through that stock, and they're going to ride it with you. If it goes up, their value goes up, their equity goes up. There's not always a payment. Sometimes there's a dividend. Sometimes there's not, right? Just depends. But the dividend comes out of profit.
This is what the show Shark Tank is all about. The guys trying to take a piece of the people's company.
Well, they're venture capital. They're
right.
buying
They're
stock.
investing venture capital into companies.
Yeah. I'm talking when you go public, Okay. Right.
Okay.
So you've got 10,000 stock. Everybody buys it for $1. They've got $10,000.
Yep.
That $10,000 then increases your revenue. The value goes up in the business, and now that stock is worth $2, and all the equity investors doubled their investment.
And everybody's happy.
And if there's a dividend paid, it's only out of profits. So if the company doesn't make money, there's no dividend. So there's no interest rate to pay. There's only profits to share. Okay. Not a bad model. The problem is the way it works right now is when you go public, you end up going to these big brokerage houses, Goldman Sachs, there's a whole handful of them. And what happens is when they go public, they have insiders. Okay. To get those initial public offerings, IPOs, you go to Goldman Sachs, and of course they call up all their big clients and they go, hey, gobble up this stock before it goes public. And then what happens is when it goes public, every single business, with few exceptions, the day it goes public, then the public gets a chance to buy. They buy, and all those insiders short.
Yep.
So then the stock drops. So the guys that raise the capital, they get the money from the initial insiders, but all the people that want to invest later, they usually get hosed, right? They get a huge depreciation in their equity. And sometimes, more often than you would expect, the equity never gets back up to the IPO offering.
Oh, man.
So it makes it very unattractive. It's very limited who can get in. The winners are oftentimes the people that are the preferred clients of Goldman Sachs or these big banks.
And everybody else gets captured.
Everybody else gets captured. It's a really broken system for small and mid cap size businesses. Even big cap businesses also suffer from this too. It is a completely rigged system. It disincentivizes companies from going that route because of that fact alone, even though sometimes it is the best financial option for them to go that route. So, for example, Northgate Mall, right? There might be a business model there that's fairly affordable. A couple $1 million could reinvigorate the mall, making sure the rents are affordable, and ensure that businesses choose to house there to ensure people come, and there's a reason to do that. But there's no possibility they're going to be able to go public, okay? Because they don't meet the records. But if you could somehow offer shares to the world, the public, I might say, hey, I'll throw $1,000 at Northgate and be an equity owner, right? Yeah. But if I can't afford the stock, or I don't want to play that silly game where I'm getting hosed by the insiders all the time, I'd never do it. Things are changing. Eric Trump sat down with New York Next and did an interview about what is the future of finance in regards to this exact situation I said. What happens when businesses want to raise capital? They either go to the bank or they have to go public. And both of them are rigged systems, Ron. Totally rigged systems. So what is tokenization? When you hear that phrase, like when you hear Larry Frank or Jamie Dimon talking about things are going to be tokenized in the future, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, Eric, you said you were on the first yard line when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto and this entire space. How do you see it, for instance, like reshaping real estate? Do you see the tokenization of everything, or what do you see the next 5 years?
Tokenization of everything. In time. I mean, it might not all happen in the next 5 years, but listen, we're seeing a Trump Tower, right? Very famous building. Probably everybody on earth has heard of Trump Tower.
Heard of it, yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. Why is it if I want to put financing on this building? Why is it if I want to go take a loan? I probably had the ability to go to 7 different banks that had the capability of doing a project like this. Why can't I go out to tens of millions of people around the world who adore Trump, adore our name, and offer to them and say, listen, we're going to put $500 million of financing on Trump Tower. Who wants a part of it? You raise the money, and guess what? All these people, this incredible group of people, all have a small share, a couple shares, a couple tokens, of Trump Tower. Like, that's a beautiful concept. Like Taylor Swift puts out a new album. You know, why can't she go and why can't she sell that album and otherwise tokenize it, monetize that album, and have people bet on the success of their fan, of whoever they love, whoever they aspire to be. You're going to have tokenized movies. You're going to have tokenized artists. You're going to have tokenized real estate. You're going to have tokenized commodities. You know, there's virtually nothing. You're going to have tokenized art. You know, guess what? You want to own the greatest painting ever. Guess what? You can't afford the $200 million price tag, but you can own, 1/10,000th of that painting or 1/100,000th of that painting. And you can, you can get the accretion of the value if it goes up, and, maybe if it goes down, I think everything should be tokenized. You're seeing companies tokenized, you're seeing stocks tokenized. It's coming and it's right around the corner. It'll give great accessibility to people who would otherwise never be able to access certain financial markets and certain asset classes for the first time. Once again, providing financial freedom that just doesn't exist in today's economy.
The idea with the token is incredible. It's essentially a version of stock that is available to everybody. So you can tokenize an idea. It's crowdfunding on steroids. Mm-hmm. It locks that up. That is going to be the future of crypto. The future of Bitcoin is like gold. It becomes the reserve, right? Really incredible stuff there.
This is even a new paradigm that I'm going to have to wrap my mind around.
Yeah. The idea of crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. Instead of being a buyer of things, be an owner of things, mm-hmm. right? Instead of supporting with your purchases, which are important, right? Now, if you want to support a business, I've done this. We've all done this. You vote with your eyes, your dollars, and your clicks, mm-hmm. right? DollarsVoteLouder.com. I will buy certain goods just to support the business, even though sometimes I don't need the good, mm-hmm. right? Well, rather than do that, what if I buy equity?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So now I can buy equity. And what does that do? The equity is only worth it if the business model works. So instead of throwing my money away at a company that I view as a good company, maybe their business model isn't right. I don't want to prop up a bad business model, but I'll invest in a good one.
This is kind of like poly market for businesses, because you're betting on the business.
You're investing in the business.
Right. But you could just change the word, betting, investing, whatever.
Yeah, maybe you can. All right. Another thing too. Do you remember Roy Moore in Alabama when he ran for election? Do you remember when Roy Moore was running for election?
No.
Okay. Well, when he ran for election in Alabama, a story broke. But he's an old man, and way back in the day, when he was like 18 or 19, he dated like a 14 or 15-year-old. And I mean, we're talking like, far enough back that most states still had marriage legal at 14, 15, and 16. Okay. So this is like back in the day. He's an old man, and way back in the day, he dated a young lass.
Pre-World War II.
I don't know if that far back, but it was a while back. Let's see. Roy Moore. Yeah. Roy Moore. Yeah, he was.
What was his birthday?
I can't remember, but he was old. I mean, okay. the whole thing was like the woman was out there and she was being interviewed. She's like, he treated me like a gentleman. I was just, he was just calling on me, and my mom knew about it. And it was like they didn't. I don't even think there was allegations of impropriety. It was just the sheer fact that as an adult he dated a teenager.
Okay.
Right? Now again, I always laugh at this. I had this problem in prison. I was like, some of the guys in here, they could be my grandpa. What did I mean by that? My grandpa, when he came back from the Korean War, his first wife left him. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And I think when he was like 24 or something like that, he went up to his brother's house in Washington. And I could be butchering the story, so I apologize to my family if I'm getting it totally wrong. But anyways, the babysitter for his brother's kids became my grandmother. And she was 16 or 17 when they started dating. Okay. And they got married when she was 17 and he was like 24. Well, they stayed together for like 65 years.
I get it.
Okay. And I'm going, if this happened today, my grandpa would be here in prison with me, but not allowed to sit in the TV room. He'd be standing in the hall watching TV. Right. But instead, he's my grandpa and we all love him and revere him. So, a couple decades can really change the way we look at stuff. I know you're laughing, but it's true. Right? I mean, we all have grandparents.
I'm laughing because I can think of all these different circumstances where there are situations like this that just happen all the time.
All the time. Now, today, that can't really happen. Okay. I mean,
No.
like most states wouldn't even let that happen, but it is an interesting thing. If you go talk to your grandparents, you're going to find a lot of them that got married at 17,
Well, you'll find out a lot of very interesting stories. You should just ask grandma to tell you a story.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, things can change. So the Roy Moore story was one of those ones where it's like, I don't know if that was as big a deal at the time as it would be made out to be today, right?
Definitely not.
So the Washington Post and all of the reporters involved with breaking this story, I mean, it damaged him. He lost the election. It was a death knell. They just ran this thing over and over and over, TV commercials, and it all came out of
Can you believe it?
It all came out of this Washington Post reporting. Roy Moore, the pedophile.
Okay.
Well, turns out one of the reporters who was on the video team that was making all these award-winning videos was just found guilty of something.
A Pulitzer Prize-winning deputy director for video at the Washington Post has been arrested and charged with possession of child pornography.
Officers arrested Thomas LeGros yesterday after the FBI searched his Northwest home. He appeared in federal court earlier today. Our News 4 Paul Wagner has the latest.
Inside this home on Alton Place Northwest, the FBI says it seized a laptop computer containing 11 videos depicting child pornography. According to a criminal complaint filed in federal court, the laptop belongs to Thomas Pham LeGros, a deputy director of video for the Washington Post and the 2018 winner of the Pulitzer Prize he shared with a team of journalists. In a statement to News 4, the publication says the Post understands the severity of these allegations and the employee has been placed on leave. The criminal complaint filed against LeGros includes 7 blank pages.
Blank, they're fully redacted as they are.
That's his paperwork for when he goes to jail.
Now, Jake Tapper's executive producer, as well as someone else that's a big, a TDS infected, also got arrested a while back for, heinous crimes. There seems to be this weird theme, There seems to be this weird theme.
Hickory dickory dock, another chomo got stabbed.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So the other thing too, did we play yesterday the guy that jumped out of the 4th story window to run away from the cops in Minnesota? Oh my goodness. So yesterday there was another one of these raids in Minnesota for a home health care scheme. Okay. And this guy, Omar, was indicted for stealing over $3 million. Well, when the cops showed up to capture him, he jumped out of a 4th story balcony window.
Damn.
Okay. Yes. So here's the video here. Let's see. So here's the video here that in the briefing they showed, and he jumps out right here. If you can see him land here, and then he runs like this.
I want you to get a good look at him right now. You'll see him. You'll see him running here. He is currently on the run. We need your help. If you recognize this individual, if you know this individual, if you can provide any information related to this individual, I would encourage you to call 1-800-CALL-FBI, CALL-FBI, or go to the internet at www.tips.fbi.gov or call your local law enforcement.
All right, so they captured him.
Ouch.
The guy took off out of a 4th story.
Motivated.
Now, do you remember the gal that was indicted for Amy Bach? She was indicted for the $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme in Minnesota.
I don't remember the name, but I do remember this.
Okay, so this is the woman that did an interview with Fox News while she was in prison awaiting sentencing, saying the governor and the attorney general were aware of this and Ilhan Omar was in on it.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Well, she got sentenced yesterday.
A Minnesota judge has just sentenced the mastermind behind the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, Amy Bach. She just got more than 41 years in prison. The prosecution is asking for a 50-year sentence and her defense about 3 years. So that's somewhere in the middle that they got that, but closer to what obviously the prosecution wanted. The scheme involved the theft of nearly $250 million in COVID funding. That money was meant to feed hungry children. State leaders claim they were unaware of the fraud. Here's what Amy Bach told our Alexis McAdams from jail back in January.
I honestly believe Keith Ellison and Governor Walz need to be held accountable.
Yes, there needs to be an investigation. How do you think I did this? $250 million? Now, I don't think all of that was used fraudulently, but that was the total amount that went to her foundation, and then they were taking off millions from there. Pretty stunning. So 41 years, precedent has been set. It could be rough. If I was a fraudster in Minnesota, I'd go ahead and head back to Nairobi now. Yeah, so you don't have to jump out of fourth-story balconies because you're not going to get very far with that limp. Okay, so during the Biden administration, do you remember when they were telling us that the crime stats across the country were going down?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, crime stats were going down. And then we found out that they excluded certain cities and they excluded certain crime categories. And it was standardized manipulation. Same thing that was going on in D.C. with the manipulation of the numbers.
Well, you definitely exclude all the peaceful protests.
Yeah, it was happening all across the country, right? So some countries literally were not reporting anymore to the FBI, right. And so the numbers looked like they were coming down. Well, Republicans latched onto this, and they're like, dude, you're manipulating the numbers. So Ken Delanian, a reporter who is often known as Deep State Ken, okay, he's like a total deep state spokesperson on the news. Ken Delanian says something, it's almost always a deep state tip, okay? It's a deep state narrative. So in 2024, he was criticizing the Republicans and people who were saying that the crime stats were going down and that they weren't. He was criticizing them. And we're going to hear his justification for that. Well, he just did another hit on the news now that crime is actually going down. And my understanding was when Trump came in, he restored the way that they count the crime. Okay. So they kind of went back to the way it was before the Biden administration. Everything about the Biden administration was just manipulated numbers, manipulated job data, manipulated inflation data, manipulated crime stats, everything to make it look like things are going well. But meanwhile, you can see the crime in your local neighborhood.
The latest numbers from the FBI, which come from cities, by the way, the FBI doesn't make these numbers up, showed that violent crime overall declined by a rate of 3% in 2023. The Republicans and others are pushing the narrative that this data is wrong, that crime is somehow up when it's down. Violent crime has declined significantly over the last few years and appears to be continuing to decline. It's a good news story. It's too bad that not everybody is prepared to accept it. Sources are telling us is there's no larger number of fugitives or arrestees being taken off the street. It's just simply a numbers game. It was remarkable to hear Kash Patel really lean into these stats, which our sources say are basically bogus. These stats do not reflect additional suspects being taken off the streets, is what our sources are telling us. These stats just don't add up, and Patel is claiming credit for things that really aren't real.
Snip, snap, snip, snap. What's true? We have no idea.
You know what's interesting is when we watch some of these past clips, it's interesting how often that they just say it out loud. Like, these numbers are real. We did not make these up. It's like, wait a second. You're talking about the numbers that you made up, right?
Now, that's protest too much. And then they turn around and be like, those numbers are definitely made up. Same numbers, same stat line, same stat line. The projection that happens to us through the media is stunning. Exactly. Like, most people aren't going to go back and remember. This is what makes the internet so beautiful. The internet doesn't forget, and we have access to it. In the 90s, you didn't have videotape files that you could go back and look at all of Ken Delanian's statements. Yes. You know, a reporter could say one thing last year and a thing different next year, and it's 5 o'clock nightly news. It's off. Boom. You move on. If you don't retain the information in your head, you're going to believe the next thing that's spoon-fed to you.
You know what'd be awesome is if we could get Grok right next to, like, side by side, like instantly verifying everything they say. And it would just be like, bullshit, 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 bullshit.
That would be pretty good. All right. Police out in Longview, Washington just arrested the local school superintendent. Charges against another school official are forthcoming. They're accused of trying to cover up a student's report of sexual assault, including failure to report, obstruction, and witness tampering. Today, May 21st, 2026, at approximately 9:26 a.m., the Longview Police Department arrested Karen Collinger, superintendent of Longview Public Schools, as part of an ongoing investigation related to the reported sexual assault case involving students at Mark Morse High School. Charges include tampering with a witness, failure to report, and obstructing a law enforcement officer. Additional charges are forthcoming for Andrew Scovener, Executive Director of Student Services for Longview Public Schools, including but not limited to failure to report and making a false or misleading statement to a public servant. The investigation required a significant amount of time, coordination, and evidence review, said Chief Robert Huta, who we understand the significance of the case has in our community and the concern it has created for students, families, staff, and the broader public. According to the probable cause statement, detectives developed information that Mark Morris High School staff and direct leadership were made aware of allegations involving a physical and sexual involvement, misconduct involving students as early as January 29th, 2026. Detectives further allege the superintendent, Karen Collinger, was made aware of the details involving multiple students, including allegations that one student was forcibly dragged into the Mark Morris High School varsity team room, pinned to the ground, and partially disrobed. The probable cause statement further alleges Longview Police Department leadership directly contacted Collinger on February 5th, 2026, and reports began circulating on social media and asked whether law enforcement assistance was needed. Detectives allege law enforcement was informed that the matter had been investigated by Long School District and handled internally. Can you handle stuff like that internally?
No.
No. That's another not good thing. All right. Totally different topic. AI. Do you understand how large language models work?
No.
I don't either. But I found an explanation that's as good as it gets, and it's only 30 seconds long.
ChatGPT doesn't understand anything. All ChatGPT is doing is when you give it a piece of text, it's trying to predict what the next piece of text should be. And it's essentially doing some fancy statistics is what it boils down to, although a statistician might argue with me about that. But let's call it some fancy statistics. And it's working on the basis of having seen an enormous amount of pre-existing text. It's not in any meaningful sense understanding. ChatGPT doesn't understand.
Don't chat with your ChatGPT. Ask it questions. Don't chat with it. Okay? It does not understand anything. Don't chat with it. Ask it questions. I just thought that was a really good explanation.
Yeah.
So one of the things over at 1776live.us that we're constantly talking about is privacy, right? Having been someone who sat in a courtroom and watched his messages and his Facebook posts and things he liked thrown back in his face, things that I thought were totally benign to hit the like button on, totally put up there. You agreed with this. It's like, no, I just like everything that person posts. I probably didn't even read it. It's a long post, right?
Yeah.
So there is a digital exhaust that we leave all the time. So I saw this from Eagle Ed Martin. This is Ed Martin, the weaponization of government attorney and the pardon attorney. And there's an attorney that's been working on this prosecution case against Jeff Clark, who was one of Trump's attorneys that spoke at the Capitol on J6, right? So they've gone after him. They took his bar license. They took his law license in the District of Columbia. And so the DOJ has now sued the bar saying, hey, you don't have a right to basically be an extension of the weaponization arm of the government. And one of the attorneys, his name is Counsel Jack Metzler, removed himself from the case when some information about him surfaced on how biased of a person he was. And I just saw this, I just kind of randomly out of nowhere. We found a second previously undisclosed X account belonging to DC Bar Disciplinary Counsel Jack Metzler. Like the one cited in the DOJ suit against the DC Bar about at Jeff Clark US, this one contains clear indica of political bias. So I simply looked at this. And I saw this here. You have identifiers association dehashed, and then you've got, his social media deal here, his index identity, and then some, code looking stuff here. And then there was this other one here where SINT, and I saw that you had export data on here and access to all his usernames, basically cross-referencing things like his email to different usernames and usernames to different emails.
Okay.
And it just it startled me a little bit. Because I thought, is this government data? Is this government exfiltration data where they can see things behind the wall, right? So I did a little research on that. Turns out it's not. Turns out it's open source stuff. Any private investigator sleuth, which oversight committee kind of fulfills that role, oversight project fulfills that role, can gather this information on you. All they need is one identifier. They need your phone number. They need your email. They need your name. They need a username or a vanity name you've used. And then there's these
Just some kind of tag.
Yeah, some kind of tag. And then if that tag was ever used, like say you have a phone number and you've got 5 different vanity names that you've used, it'll take those vanity names. And then if that one of those vanity names was ever used a second time somewhere else with a different phone number, they can compile all this data.
In the internet, they call this name resolution.
Yeah. I mean, I'm aware of this stuff, but I was going through this and I was like, oh my gosh, like on this Google one, right? Google exfiltration data, like all of his Google photos are here, his Google Play, his maps, his Meet, his YouTube, like obviously the YouTube that I could just go look at his YouTube, but they've got his photos, his photo album.
Oof.
If you're using a Google photo album, that's publicly available data. They could just get it on these websites.
Wow. I did not know that.
Google Pay, your Google Pay activity. An activist recently told me this week, like he never ever uses credit cards or debit cards because the credit card companies like Visa and American Express and MasterCard, those companies, they sell the data, right? They sell the data so that people can, advertisers can profile against you. And it turns out they'll even give the data away. Like if you just know an insider, you call a guy over at Visa and you're like, hey, I need all of the transactions for this guy. It's so readily available. They just give it away.
Huh.
Anyways, so it's like, I don't use it because as an activist, like he's, you know, long story here, but he's been fighting the Washington state government for like 16 years. And anyways, he's had all kinds of shenanigans. He's had his license suspended and just thing after thing after thing. So he's learned to kind of operate in such a way that he doesn't give them real-time data on where he's at and stuff like that. Oh, this is how they're getting it. So all the more reason to go to mark37.com and get yourself a ghost phone because that limits the connecting of all this data.
I was just thinking about maybe I need my own Ruby Ridge. Just check out.
When you go too far to the right, you end up wanting to live by yourself on a mountain ridge, right? And that's it. Just leave me alone. You go too far to the left, and you're like wanting to take the rich guy's apartment. There's like a completely different. Yeah, we're more inclined to go full Ruby Ridge on this. Yeah. Just be like Bitcoin only here. All right. Last thing in public before we head over to private, and we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about the J6 weaponization fund. And I want to talk about it, and I figure it's best to talk about it in the private side. Yeah. So this is the Hopi Indians, who are, a lot of people don't know this, but all the tribes that you're accustomed to hearing, the Navajo, the Cherokee, the Apache, all these things. So when the mound builder civilization that was on this continent, as soon as white settlers showed up on this continent, a plague swept across America and took out a huge majority of the Native American population that was here prior, like just swept through like wildfire. And so the remnants of those populations created new bands of tribes. The ones in the plains were nomadic. They used to be mound builders. They had actually like agrarian Indian cultures and civilizations. So these tribes that you've heard of, like Navajo, they're only 400 years old. Like that civilization competes with the American civilization that was coming here through the colonies. I didn't know that. For some reason in my mind, I watched a documentary on it and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that, like, you know, these guys have not been around that long. It's like they made it up. Like they made their stuff up in like 400 years ago with the remnant of what was left of the Indian population. But the Hopi Indians, they're a little bit different. They actually are ancient. They've been around for thousands of years for whatever reason, because of their seclusion out in the desert. They weren't affected by the plague that passed by the rest of the tribes. So they have a very, very ancient culture. And so this is just a little bit more alien disclosure. So in some interview, they sat down and they were showed images of the Greys, right? They were showed images of the Greys, and they had an instantaneous reaction to this.
These Brazilian tribe members had never heard of aliens before. And they
just said Brazilian tribe member or Hopis. Hopis. Let me just check something. I don't know where I got the Hopis. Apparently they're a Brazilian tribe.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Either way, an old tribe.
I didn't even understand the concept of them, but when they were shown a picture of a gray alien, they recognized it immediately and said that's Mankumboa. They live underground. And this lines up with other legends from around the world of ancient underground ant people. The Hopi people have long told us stories about intelligent beings that live underneath the earth, who helped humans survive difficult times and changes in the earth. They weren't described as aliens in the modern sense, but simply called ant people. The idea of underground, non-human beings has been a part of their oral history for generations.
He just called them the Hopi, right? He just called him the Hopi?
I don't know.
Now I got to ask where the
You
Hopi
can back
are.
it up if you want.
Let's see. No, he did call him the Hopi. Indigenous oral histories, including Hopi, petroglyphs of large. Oh, so it crossed over the stories. So the Brazilian tribe answering the questions, but the Hopis also have the same belief. That's what it is. So what if the Greys are coming from underground? Carlito, doesn't that make more sense? I think that might make more sense. The Greys are just coming from underground. And when you remember that Amy Eskridge lady, the Amy Eskridge lady had said that they're actually people from the future, which people have speculated about the Greys, that they're us genetically altered and blah, blah, blah. Very interesting. All right, guys, that's it. Just a little bit of alien talk just to make sure we remain a conspiracy show. Okay, we want to keep that title. Now we're going to go talk about the J6 conspiracy into the private side. So for those of you not joining us, we'll talk to you again tomorrow. For those of you on audio and Rumble Premium, we will talk to you in seconds.